that there's always time to change. It's your choice. Everyone has choices.
Hi, I'm Ebony, and I believe that stories change lives, and everyone has a story worth telling. Sometimes, unfortunately, we let our self-doubt get in the way of us writing our stories and sharing our stories. So that's why I created Motivation to Write as a source of motivation and inspiration to help writers like you and me share our stories with the world. So I talk to the experts ranging from entrepreneurs to marketers to authors to therapists to psychologists who share their knowledge and their advice to help writers like you and me step into our full potential.
Suthar is a business strategist who helps entrepreneurs maximize their potential and expedite their success. After several health setbacks, Suthar quit her law enforcement career and plunged into sales and marketing. She learned how to help business owners increase their profits. Soon, she started to do the same for herself and launched her own coaching business. As founder of Uncensored Society, Kay helps entrepreneurs with the 5 pillars of business: sales, marketing, finance, operations, and leadership. Kay, I know you have an interesting story about how you even stepped into entrepreneurship, right? So why don't you just give us a little bit of your background as far as how you became an entrepreneur first?
Oh God, where do I start? So, all right, let me take it back to when I was in my 20s. Oh my goodness. So I remember going from job to job to job to job, right? Each one being completely different to the other. Like I worked in a magistrate's court. Then I remember doing voiceovers for children's books. Then I kind of became a hairdresser. Then, then I went into becoming an MMA fighter. Went into politics.
An MMA fighter?
Did you say? I did. I know. You think it's shocking now, but when I tell people this when I'm standing in front of them, their jaws drop because I'm only 4'11", right? So.
Oh wow! Oh my gosh!
Right. And so I guess at the time I didn't realize it, but I was trying to find myself. Right. So when I was younger, people used to say to me, "Oh, what do you want to be when you're older?" I turn around and say to them, "I want to be rich." Right. I don't know how I'm going to get there, when it's going to happen, but I want to be rich when I'm older. And so I wasn't one of those people that, had it planned out. Right. So I never said I want to be a teacher. I want to be an astronaut or a teacher. I had no clue what I wanted to be. And so it was just trying to find out what my passion was, where I found joy. And I went through so many different experiences and different backgrounds that the one thing that I did learn about myself was that I'm able to adapt. So no matter what situation I was in, I was able to go in there to learn something brand new and adapt. And hence building the kind of skills that I did. And now looking back as a business strategist, adapting to your situation, to the world is something that is completely needed, right? And so it allowed me to, I guess, think outside the box and get creative. Have a different perspective on things because I allowed myself not to have a one-track mind, not to just do one thing, not just specialize in one thing. Let me just try loads of different things out, right? And see where I like kind of heading over. So it wasn't until, oh God, a few things happened. When I became an MMA fighter, I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is me. This is my career. And I find that just funny things happen when, I guess, your destiny isn't the path that you're currently on. And so I found out that when I was set up to have my first match was going to be in Thailand. I couldn't wait. I was training hard for it, right? It was being promoted. I invited everyone over that you got to come over and see my first fight in Thailand. I was so excited. And then I remember during training, I ended up causing myself so much injury. I ended up in the hospital. And to the point where I dislocated my shoulder, I messed up my hip, I jarred my neck, I wasn't able to move it, I wasn't able to hold my own neck up. And so as I was there at the doctor's, they turned around and said to me, they were like, if you carry on doing this, you're going to end up paralyzed. Because apparently my spine was all messed up as well. And so at that point, I was like, holy crap, I got to switch once again, right? I had to forget about becoming this MMA fighter that I love doing, because beating the crap out of people is actually so much fun, right? But
I can imagine it's quite a release.
Yes. And so I was like, I'm back to square one again. Right? I've got to figure out what I'm going to do next. And a lot of the things that I did do, I never planned. I was just like, okay, let me just try this out and see what happens. And so I remember going onto the computer and looking for another job. And these vacancies came up as, people looking for police officers. And I was like, oh, let me just see how this goes, never thinking that I was ever going to get in. I was like, there's no way they're going to accept me. Let me just do it for a laugh, right? And so I filled out the application form and was told that I got in, went for my first day assessment, and I was in two minds about actually attending. I was like, should I go? Like, this wasn't really the plan of me becoming a police officer, right? And I remember my mom saying to me, she was like, well, just go. You never know what's going to happen. If you don't get in, then you don't lose anything, right? So I was like, well, okay, I'll just go ahead. Went there, oh my God, it was so intense. Like, there was role plays, there was exams, it was a whole day assessment, right? And so I kind of did that. And a few weeks later, received a letter saying that, oh yeah, you got through to the day 2 assessment. And I'm like, okay, so the day 2 assessment was all medical. So you got to carry weights, you got to do the running, you got to do the bleep test, you got to do, all that stuff. So, okay, let me go and check this out. Did that, and then got through. All of a sudden, I was being booted and suited for a uniform. And so now I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is what I'm doing. Right? So I did that, and I was a police officer for 6.5 years.
Wow.
Yes, so for a long
in London or where?
In London.
Okay.
And then I was like, okay, well, I guess this is what my career is. This is what I'm going to be doing until I retire. And then it happened again. I ended up in hospital. And the funny thing is, I remember waking up one day and, going into the bathroom. As soon as the hot water touched my skin, it was on fire. And so I jumped out, went straight to the mirror, and found out my entire body had come out in a rash. No idea where it came from. I went to sleep completely fine the night before. And so I went to the hospital, had all these tests done. And I remember waiting for the doctor in the consultation room for my results. And he walked in and he looked straight at me and he goes to me, you were lucky to get here when you did. So I'm like, what do you mean? What's going on? And he goes, well, if you didn't get here when you did, your throat would have closed up. And so I was like, well, how the hell did this happen? Like, where did this come from? And he goes, this form of rash is brought on by your body being overly stressed out. And I didn't realize how stressed I was, like mentally, physically, emotionally, doing this job. And so again, I was like, right, well, I can't do this anymore because my life is now on the line. I've got to find something else to do. And so I was like, right, you know what? I've got enough money in the bank for 6 months to figure out what I want to do next. And then I guess, like most people, when you kind of hit the wall every time, I was like, wouldn't it be great if I was my own boss? Right?
Yeah.
Again, not knowing what kind of business I wanted to build. In fact, that's where my entrepreneurial journey started, because now I was like, right, I need to know what business actually is. What does business actually mean? How does it work in real life? And so
when you said, because when you said you wanted to make money when people asked when you were, or you wanted to be rich, when people asked when you were a kid, and you never thought of just like owning your own business or being some type of like CEO, or it just seems a little, I don't know if I would join the police force and think that was gonna make money, or being like did that never come into the equation? Owning your own business when you were a kid?
It was an idea, but how I was going to do that, I had no idea, no clue.
Yeah.
How does that work? Right? Is that just a dream of mine? Because to me, the way I was brought up, things like that only happen to certain people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the way of life is going to school, going to college, getting a full-time job, retiring, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, maybe this is just a dream of mine. Maybe it's never going to happen. Have no clue how this happened. I've been told that, it only happens to certain kinds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, let me just, I guess, carry on doing this and maybe even working up the ladder. Maybe that's where I'm going to become rich. I don't know. But then there were so many walls that I faced. There were so many blocks that I faced. When I finally thought this was it, it wasn't it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was until, that happened in the police force that I was like, right, okay, I need to find out what business is because none of this is working out for me. And I've tried for many years.
Yeah.
And so I remember this is when I started journaling, started doing vision boards, right? Mm-hmm. And being told about, putting things out to the universe and manifesting. And in the beginning, to be honest, I thought this is a bit too woo-woo for me. What is this all about, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I started kind of reading into it and researching, I was like, well, let me give it a go. Because, I'm not going to lose anything by doing this, right? If anything, it'll hopefully help me focus a lot more on my goals. Mm-hmm. And so I had the vision board and started journaling and things. And I started reading and actually got the DVD for The Secret. Mm-hmm. And so what I started to do is watching it. And then every morning and every night before I went to bed, I used to switch it on so it's in the background, right? So it's still having this subliminal effect around me and just focusing on what my goals were. And one of the things that I decided to do is that I would love to work in live events, right? Again, something completely different I've never done before. Mm-hmm. And don't have no experience in it, don't have no qualifications in there. But I was like, that would be the right environment for me to be in compared to me being as a police officer, because that was a complete negative environment, right? Mm-hmm. And that didn't work out for me. And so I decided that, okay, I want to do events. And people were telling me, they were like, you're living in the dream world. And no one's going to hire you. You don't have no qualifications. You don't have no experience. And I was like, well, this is what I want to do. Like, we'll see how it goes. And I remember I went to a Dr. DeMartini event. And I met someone there who was sitting next to me. Never met her before. And she started asking me, what are your goals? What are your experiences? What would you like to do? And all this kind of stuff. And it felt like a bit of a job interview. And so I said to her, well, who are you? Where do you come from? And she goes to me, well, she works for this company and they're looking for someone to hire in the events department.
In the what department?
In the events department.
Oh, events. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And she goes, you'd be awesome. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I don't have no experience. I have no clue what I'm doing. And she goes, well, do you want to learn? I was like, yeah. She goes, well, that's all we need to know. Mm-hmm. And the next minute she goes to me, well, I'm going to give you a call in a week so you can have a conversation with the head of department. And I'm like, really? I'm like, who just offers you a job like that? Like, that never happens, mm-hmm. right? And so I never thought I would hear from her again. She took my number. I was like, I'm never going to hear from her. She called me a week later and said to me, we've got an event in London. Why don't you come down and meet the team? I'm like, what? And I was like, well, I guess I'm not doing anything. I'm not working, so why not? Mm-hmm. And so I went down there, met the team, had a 4-hour conversation with them, kind of was seeing how this event worked, what it meant, and all of this kind of stuff. It was completely different to what I was used to. Mm-hmm. And so I remember them saying to me, yeah, okay, you're hired. And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, you're hired. And they're like, what you doing in 2 days? I'm like, I've got nothing planned. They're like, great. They're like, we need you to pack your bags because your first event is going to be in Malaysia. Right. And so at that point, I started working live events. Now, the great thing about these events were they were all business events. Mm-hmm. It was all about sales. It's all about marketing, digital platform. And so all of a sudden, I'm there at the back of these rooms, at these events, traveling all over the world, learning business firsthand by these gurus, the experts that have been doing it on stage, and I'm just soaking it all up. Right? And I was doing that for a few years and just learning about what real life business meant. And so at that point, I remember I then kind of progressed from being the first person to be employed in the events department, then becoming an events manager within 4 months. And then I said to them, oh, I want to learn sales. How does that work? So I was then being coached and trained on sales. And then within a year, becoming the number one salesperson in the company. And so at that point, I remember being asked by the CEO to move down to Costa Rica, because this is where he's bought his resort to hold his mastermind events. And these mastermind events are, people that are paying $60K above to be at these events, right? So they're definitely high ticket.
Yeah.
And so he goes, I want you to go up there, work with the team, because he needs this to be successful. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. So flew there, right? And the intention was to try it out for about a month, see if I like it. If I don't like it, then I'll come back. And so I went out there, and I was there for 3 weeks. I was on top of my game, making so much money, traveling the world like it couldn't get any better. And then it happened. The company shut down.
After how long?
Oh, God, after about 5 years.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm now in this foreign country. I don't speak the language. I'm now homeless, no food, no water, because guess what? The company was paying for all of that. The minute they shut down, all of that got wiped out.
Okay. So they were paying for your housing.
Yep. Housing, food, and water, plus getting paid on top of that, which was amazing.
And this was in Costa Rica?
Correct.
Okay. So so you were living in Costa Rica for 5 years? Before.
No. I just moved there. I was there for 3 weeks and the company got shut down.
Okay. So you were there with the company but the company had been around for 5 years, is what you said?
Yes.
Okay, right. I get it. Okay. So after 3 weeks, the company shuts down and now you find yourself completely without a job, without a home, okay.
Right. And now I'm kind of like, okay, holy crap, what am I going to do now? This is such a messed up situation. And I remember sitting there and just laughing to myself because it was so ridiculous to be in this situation, right? And I remember kind of looking over the room and seeing my, teammates like absolutely pulling out their hair, stressing out, crying because they don't know what to do now. And I had a different perspective. I was like, hold on a second. When you think about the Tony Robbins of the world, the Les Browns of the world, at one point they were all homeless. And now they're multi-millionaires. And I was like, holy crap, I'm going to be a millionaire because I'm homeless, right? Right. But because I had that perspective and I wasn't overwhelmed and distressed, I was able to think out of the box and get creative to find a solution to get out of this predicament that I am in right now. And so what I decided to do is that the resort itself, and there were several other businesses on the coast, I went up to them and said to them, look, you still need to bring clients into this business. You got this resort here. The resort was actually set up as a different entity, so it didn't shut down, but the rest of his business did. And I go, so you still got staff here that you need to pay. You still got bills that you need to pay. So let me help you bring in clients, help you promote. And in return, I need my basic needs met. I need shelter, I need food, and I need water. And what I did is actually show them what was possible. Show them what had been done with other clients, the difference it made. And the minute I showed them, they realized, God, if they hired anybody else, it would cost them thousands of dollars. But yet all I was asking for were my basic needs met. And so at that point, that's when I was like, okay, as long as my basic needs are met, I can help you out. I can do this, but I need to raise money. Hence why I was helping out other different businesses, because they were then paying me not a lot of money, but something to survive on for me to be able to get back home. And so that's what I did. So what I learned from that is that if you want to be able to help yourself, you need to help others.
So the company, the mastermind part of the business collapsed, but the resort was still open. Is that
right? Yes.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Yeah. So the main business was teaching people about business, about getting on the digital format, how to promote yourself. That was wiped out, but the resort itself was still there standing.
Okay. And you said, I can help you with clientele as far as the resort. I can help you really build up the resort so you can bring in more money. So how did you do that?
So how I did that was actually helping them brand to promote, because they didn't know how to do any of this, right? They were relying on these high ticket clients coming through the main business to actually pay for their bills and all this kind of stuff. Now that wasn't going to happen. They had to find another way. And so I kind of showed them, okay, well, first of all right, you've got your own website, which is great, but there's several other different platforms this resort could use to promote the resort and the business. So you can use things like booking.com, Expedia, right? Mm-hmm. There's different platforms where you can promote and you don't need to have a lot of money. And they didn't have, because I remember the resort manager saying to me, oh my God, we need photos. We need to pay for someone to come down. I was like, no, you don't. I was like, think about it. I was like, you had so many clients down here that was posting photos on their Facebook about being in Costa Rica, about being in this resort. All you have to do is go into their Facebook accounts and get those pictures and use that as promotion.
Okay.
Right? So you didn't need a lot of money to do this. You can start creating your own leaflets. You can start, getting it out there online. You can start emailing people. You can start calling people. There's restaurants down there. Why not collaborate with them? They're coming to the restaurant. Do they want to come down and check this resort out? Would they like to come down there for a week or weekend? Right? Yeah. So there's several ways of doing that, but they had no idea. And it's very basic stuff.
Right, yeah. I was going to say it sounded very basic, but they were so much focused on the other part of their business.
No, they weren't focused on it at all, right?
Well, the part that collapsed, I mean, it seemed like they were more focused on the mastermind part of the business to bring in money, that they weren't really thinking about the basic stuff for the resort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And they had a huge facility there. They had swimming pools, they had massages. I was like, promote your facilities. Show people, what it's like there, the experience, how they're going to be feeling. And it's on a beach, for God's sakes. It's like, hello, like it looks like paradise right there.
Okay, so then how you help other entrepreneurs to achieve their goals? Because I know you mentioned that you help them by using particular business strategies, right? So can you kind of give us an idea of what business strategies you teach other entrepreneurs to use in order to help reach their goals?
Yes. So, all right, for example, there was a client that I had in Australia, and he had a seminar business, which was great. He was making $1 million a year, which isn't too shabby, but he wanted to do better. He goes, I know I can do better, but I just don't know how. And so he had this idea of, having these different programs, having bigger events, having more events, being international. And I'm like, okay, great. So I went down and I helped him put structure in place, strategize with him, hire new people on the team, because if you're going to expand, you're going to need more help. And so we hired a particular sales team. We trained them up, and where he was having one event a month, maybe two on a good month, we were now having 2 events each week in a different city. And where he was making $1 million in a year, by helping him strategize and structure and actually pulling him away from these events. Because I said to him, you can't be speaking at your events. You're the CEO. I need you to figure out how we're going to expand this business, and you need to bring other speakers in. Right? So it's about outsourcing. It's about knowing your network. It's about bringing other people in and collaborating. And so when we started doing this, he realized in the first 4 months of hiring me to help him out with this, he actually made $1 million. And by the end of the year, he tripled his income.
So it has a lot to do with getting other people to help. You can't really do it all yourself. Yeah.
No way.
Right. Now, if you're just starting out as an entrepreneur, like you're a solopreneur, how do you a lot of solopreneurs don't have the money to really outsource. Like, how do you coach someone who's just starting out?
Right. So this is where you got to get creative, right? And start realizing what your resources are and using them. So one of the things that I did during the pandemic, right, is there was a lot of people that had a lot of free time. A lot of people at home bored out of their minds, itching to do something, get out, right? So at that point, I reached out to a few people, knowing that they had time, wanting to do something, and said, look, this is my plan. This is what I need to be done. Are you willing to put some time into this? Learn how to do this so you'll gain further skills, and at the same time, help me out. And not one of them actually said no. They were happy to help. They were happy to do something, get into a project and actually get their teeth into something because they were bored out of their heads. Right. And I know that a lot of people use that same strategy.
Right? So what they're getting out of it is an education.
Exactly.
Okay.
And skills while they've got the time, because they've never been able to do this if they were at work.
Okay. So then when did you decide to start your own? Because so after the mastermind gig failed because they folded, but you helped them to build up the resort. At what point did you say, oh, I think I can start my own business?
So it was a little while after that. It was, in fact, after the person that I helped in Australia. After I saw, oh, holy crap, I just made him $1 million in 4 months. What the hell am I doing here? Right? So I was like, okay, I need to be starting my own business. And so at that point, because I had learned so much from these other business gurus and kind of just soaked it all up and actually proved to myself that I knew this information by helping out this other company make money, I realized that there was still a gap in the industry. And the gap was that there's a lot of coaches and consultants that, call themselves business coaches, do very similar things to what I do. But there's a lot of coaches out there that are, how should I say it, that will tap their clients on the shoulder and tell them it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay unless you do something about it. And so I remember the coaches and mentors that I had, the ones that were like really raw and real and told me, what I needed to hear rather than what I wanted to hear. It was those coaches, those mentors that helped me progress so much further and so much faster than those that told me it's going to be okay. And so I realized that accountability has so much to do with people's progress and the results that they get. And I am very result-based. And so if you're going to be that person that's going to start giving me excuses and not putting the work in, I'm going to tell you to get your head out of your ass and actually get to work. Right? You may even cry. There might be conversations we have where you're going to cry. But it's not crying because I'm being mean to you. It's called tough love, and it means that you've just had a realization that what you have been doing hasn't been working for you, and you've got to completely change your habits. You realize the habits that work for you and the ones that don't. And so when you realize there's habits that you have that no longer serve you, you've got to be willing to then change.
So this is interesting because I've known. So what did you do? Because going back into your story. So we know that you were an MMA fighter. What am I saying? MMA fighter. You probably were a firecracker. You were in MMA for 4'11". So you were an MMA fighter and a police officer. What else did you try prior to MMA fighter? Just curious. I know you
So
mentioned
I
it.
did voiceovers for children. I
Okay.
was an interpreter for deaf children as a youth worker. I worked for the Prince's Trust. I don't know if you've heard of that, the Prince's Trust. That's just working again with vulnerable children with complicated backgrounds and
Okay.
teaching them life skills and bringing them back into society.
Okay. And did you do anything else that required some physicality, similar to like police work or MMA fighting?
No, I mean I was a hairdresser. I worked in magistrates court.
Mm-hmm.
I mean I had other little hobbies, but it wasn't a career as such. It was like I
Okay.
loved wall climbing and mountain climbing and all that kind of stuff, but it wasn't a career as such.
Right. Okay. But that you like the mountain wall climbing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm noticed just in your approach to coaching people, kind of that tough love. I can see how someone who's a former MMA fighter and a former police officer, like you're bringing that tough loveness that you probably need in those careers into
Yeah.
the business world, in business coaching, business strategist. And I think it's interesting how you always had that you see character trait,
Mm-hmm.
but you weren't necessarily in the correct career
Yeah.
at first, and it really took you being basically lying on your back for you to, I feel like that was like a big sign from the universe,
Right.
right? And I think that's what happens to a lot of people, is that you might not be in the correct space for
Mm-hmm.
your talents,
Yep.
and you don't quite realize it until you're literally, usually it has to be something physical. There's some type of accident or you get sick or whatever.
Yes.
You really should pay attention to those moments, because that's probably a big clue.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're being redirected to the path you should be on, not the path you're on right now. And
Right.
I
Yeah.
totally believe that.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the whole thing is a journey. It's lessons to be learned.
Uh-huh.
And so what I really want to kind of get across to your audience is when these things happening, that it's not happening against you, it's happening for you. There's a reason behind it all, right? And so instead of fighting it, just go with it, because you never know where it's going to lead to. And you won't understand it at the time. It's not until maybe a year, 2 years later, and you reflect back and you realize, holy crap, this is why this happened to me, because I shouldn't have been there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Now I know you also wrote a book. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So the book I wrote is called Never Judge a Book by Its Cover. And it's funny because I always knew I wanted to write a book, but I didn't really know how to go about it. And so it was at one of these events that I was working at that I had come across a coach that actually taught people how to write a book, how to publish it, and do all that good stuff, right? And I was like, right, I need him. And so I hired him. He showed me, taught me, coached me on how to do all of this. And I knew exactly what I wanted to write about. I just didn't know how to put it pen to paper. And so I remember once I realized what the strategy was and how to actually break it down, I locked myself up in a room for 30 days and completed the book in 30 days.
Wow.
Right? All I needed to know is the strategy of how to put it together. And so what it's really about and why I actually wrote it was basically a preventative measure for all my readers. I talk about all the kind of different obstacles I went through with relationships, friendships, career, health, the relationship I had with my parents, which wasn't great, is very volatile at the time. And basically everyone being against me and telling me that I can't do any of the stuff that I've wanted to do. And I was also in a very abusive relationship. And that knocked me for six as well. I lost everything about me. I didn't know who I was anymore. I lost my confidence. And so I wrote this book to let people know that you do have a voice, that not to be embarrassed. Everyone goes through different things, and it's there to help you create thick skin. It's there to help you build as a person, your character. And I wanted everyone to realize that they do have a voice, and if they're caught in a situation very similar to me, if they can relate to any one of my situations, I wanted to show them if they carry on the same road that they going down, like I did for a very long time, is never going to end up in a good place, and that there's always time to change. It's your choice. Everyone has choices. People are put into situations where they lose themselves and feel like someone else has got control. No, you're the one that has control. You're the only one that can get yourself out of those situations. But it's down to you. And so it was created to prevent people from going down the road, to prevent them going down the road any further, because it's not going to go anywhere good.
And then how did this book end up in the Royal Library?
Oh my goodness, God, that was a story. So I remember reaching out to a few different people. I reached out to Oprah Winfrey, to Ellen DeGeneres, to Steve Harvey, and, the Queen. And to let them know what I was doing, what my mission was and everything.
This is the Queen of England. We just want to...
Queen of England, yes.
Okay.
And I didn't hear anything for months. For months and months, I was like, okay, I'm not going to hear anything back. And it was about 4 to 5 months later, I received a letter from the Queen of England. I'm like, oh my goodness, of all people to write back to me, it was the Queen of England who wrote back. And she basically said to me that, she congratulated me on my journey, on my book and things like that. And she told me that she's got a copy of my book in her private royal library. And you know what? When I first got this letter, I thought someone was playing a prank. I was like, this isn't real. This can't be real. Someone's messing with me. And I started scrutinizing this piece of paper. And it was not a normal piece of paper. I mean, it was embossed with the royal emblem. Right? First of all, it had the Buckingham Palace emblem on there. And I was like, oh my God, this is real. And so that's how that happened. But of all people, I didn't think the Queen of England would be the one writing back. But it happened.
Right. Yeah. That's quite an achievement. I'm sure that gave you a big boost.
It did.
Yeah.
It did, definitely.
Yeah. So then tell us about the Uncensored Society.
Right. So Uncensored Society is my business coaching company. And like I was saying, it's I say it's hardcore, but it's not hardcore if this is what you're looking for, right? All you have to do is follow a method, follow a strategy, put in the work, no excuses. And I'm going to be there to keep you accountable. And basically, it's just making sure that these people that come onto my program is application-based only. They are being raw, real, and relentless in achieving the dream. There's no excuses. You have a dream, you have a goal, let's make it happen. And we're going to be doing this together. There are going to be days where you're feeling low, because we're all human beings, it happens. But this is where I come onto the scene and be like, well, shake you out, show you a different perspective, show you a different way of thinking. And that's how I really help people kind of shift their mindset, shift the way that, they see things, they see the world. Because what I find is society, family, culture screws that up for us big time, right? And so when you kind of show people that what they've known all their life, it doesn't have to be that way, right? Things are very simple. Us human beings love to make things, everything overcomplicated. And it doesn't need to be that complicated at all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When you're working with people, is that, so when you say overcomplicated, how do I say this question? What is the most common obstacle you've noticed that entrepreneurs are kind of stuck at when they're trying to progress?
The biggest thing, right? It's going to sound so simple, but the biggest thing is they don't ask questions. They don't ask a question. They're sitting there trying to figure it out all by themselves. Hold on a second. You've got a community around you. Why don't you just ask? If you don't know how to do something, I guarantee there's someone else in the community that does.
And I wonder if that's because we have this this kind of mindset of I have to do everything myself.
Yeah,
and if I can't do it,
bad to ask questions.
or
Yeah, they do again. But that's because I guess we've been brought up in that kind of environment. That culture's telling us that it's bad to ask questions. That it's embarrassing. And what people think of you is bad if you ask them questions. No, again, it's having that different perspective. Right? All entrepreneurs don't know everything and therefore need to reach out to their network to figure things out. It happens to all the best of us.
Yeah.
And so having that confidence and knowing that it's okay to ask questions, right? Rather than just struggling yourself and actually reaching out to people, it's fine. Do it. That's how you're going to learn.
Yeah. I think so. I teach high school, and that's like the biggest issue I see with students is they're really scared to ask questions. I think they're scared to ask questions because they don't want to appear stupid. Like, oh, I don't want to, right? And I've noticed that the students that ask the questions are the ones that they perform better because they're the ones that they actually get help, right? And I remember when I was in school, college, even grad school, I loved asking questions, right? Because I knew that there were other students in my class who were embarrassed or scared to ask the question. So sometimes I would just ask it just for the sake of other people, like, getting the answer. But that's you're right. It's very important.
I constantly ask questions. Right? I could be down the supermarket looking for red wine because I want to make a pasta sauce. Haven't got a clue about red wine. And see someone there reading labels and be like, excuse me, you clearly know what you're looking for. This is what I'm trying to do. Which one would you suggest?
Right, yeah.
Right? That is the quickest way to get around it, rather than me looking at the shelf, looking at all these different red wines and going, I don't know what the hell I'm looking at.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And, people are really happy to share their expertise.
Yeah. You kind of approach the right person that knows that field. Oh my God, they can talk forever.
Yeah.
I learned a whole bunch of stuff about red wine.
Exactly. Well, this has been a great conversation. You have this amazing story, this wonderful journey from really finding your path. I think your story really is about finding your path. I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially young people who are just starting out and don't quite even know really what they're good at. I was just talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about how a lot of times we overlook those skills. We overlook the skills that come easily to us simply because they come easily to us, right? And those are the things that we're really good at, but we overlook them because they just come naturally.
Right.
And, sometimes it takes going through several careers, like with you, to really, it becomes clear, like, okay, this is a trait that I have, this is a talent that I have, and this is how I can use it to service people, right? Using your traits to service people. That's a powerful story.
It's okay not to have it all planned out. It's okay not to have it all figured out. That's what life is, right? Trying to find out, where you're meant to be, what your passion is, how you're meant to get there. Just enjoy the journey.
Tell us where we can find you, Kay.
So you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, also on my website, www.uncensoredsociety.com. If you watch this on video, the
logo?
God, what do you even call it?
The logo?
The website. There we go. The website is above.
Oh, okay. Oh, the URL. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can find me on there. I've got a contacts page on there. You can fill in my social medias on there. Just click on the button. And Ebony, if it's okay, am I able to give your audience a free gift?
Of course.
Yeah, awesome. So it's a little bit about what we spoke about earlier. So I've created this mini program. It's called Going from Busy to Being Productive. Because what I found recently is everyone's telling me, you know what, I've got this, I've got kids, I've got a job, I've got a husband, I've got to do that. And making up all these excuses why they don't have time to put into their business. Now, if you're not going to make sure you make time to put into your business isn't going to go anywhere. It's not going to lift off from the ground. Mm-hmm. And so I started kind of putting this program together to put on pen and paper what people's long-term goals are and the short-term goals are. Mm-hmm. And then looking at, on a daily basis, where they're actually spending their time. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny. Recently, when I've actually gone through this with clients, they've realized, holy crap, I'm watching 6 hours of Netflix a day, mm-hmm. right? And that's not going to serve you or your business.
Right.
And so the minute you realize and identify where your habits are, mm-hmm. and which ones are serving you, which ones are not, you're able to then change them. But unless you're aware of those, you're not going to be able to change anything. And therefore, you're just going to be going around in circles. Mm-hmm. So this program has worksheets. It's got a video of me explaining how to do it all. So if you're stuck and you find yourself making excuses, go ahead, start this mini program, and it will put things into perspective for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I remember actually did that with my students, this advanced placement English class I had, where I had them fill out a time log. I think it was every week or every 2 weeks. Like, let's see what you're spending your time doing, because I just read a book on habits. Now, you mentioned habits. I can't remember the name of the book, but it really does come down to your habits, right?
That's right.
What you're spending time doing. Yeah. That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Kay.
No worries.
And I'm going to give you an opportunity to, if you have any final words of advice or encouragement for people who are trying to figure out their life. They're trying to figure out what they want to do, or they've started a business and they're feeling stuck, or they just need help moving forward.
Okay, so first, I've got a little nugget I would like to explain to people. Yeah. And so there's three main commodities in life that are important, and that's money, time, and change. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to use you as an example, actually. Out of those three, Ebony, which one do you think is the most vital?
Time.
Money, time, and change. Time, right. Yeah. And every person, or pretty much every person, says to me, time. Mm-hmm. And I get that, because once you use your time, you're never going to get it back.
Exactly.
But guess what? That's incorrect. Mm-hmm. It's not time. The most valuable commodity out of those three is change. Mm. And let me explain why. Because no matter where you are on this planet Earth, right, whichever country you're in, whatever background, whatever your culture is, every single person on this planet has the exact same time. Mm-hmm. So why is it some people can make $1 million in a day and others can only make $100? It's because change of habits. Mm-hmm. Right? So what we were talking about, the minute you realize the habits are serving you and are not, and you're willing to change those habits, that's when you're going to see success, not only in business, but in general life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you got to be prepared to change.
Yeah, that's actually a very good piece of advice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, change. That's very good. Thank you, Kay. It was so, what is the word? I felt very captivated listening to Kay's stories, because she tried so many different careers, and to go through so much physical pain, where she's literally like in the hospital on her back, stressed out with pain caused by the stress. That is very intense. But as we mentioned in the episode, that's what happens with a lot of people, is they don't really get the message that they need to make a change until they encounter some type of physical catastrophe. So if you are interested in her coaching, because she obviously has a lot of experience in her field, then I would highly suggest visiting her website and her social media and just reaching out to her, because she seems like a wonderful person to work with. And in the meantime, also check out Zazo.com and sign up for my newsletter. And you can follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter @Ebony Haywood, and on Facebook and Instagram at Motivation to Write. Thank you so much for tuning in, and join me next week when I talk to another fabulous guest. Bye-bye.